If you love Baltimore sports, you'll love WNST.net.
Hi, well, thank you for listening to WNST. My name is Jeff Gilley. Thank you for all coming out to Hooters tonight. Thank you for my family. My sister came all the way from Chicago to see this. So thank you very much, Monica. Congratulations to all the competitors. And obviously, Ravens training camp started today, and I want to talk about what I think is going to be their biggest strength, their biggest weakness, and the one position that needs to produce the most to ensure that the Ravens get back to the AFC Championship and hopefully ultimately the Super Bowl. And their biggest strength and weaknesses both lie on defense. I think their biggest strength is the secondary. I mean, you've got Ladarius Webb, who arguably should have been a Pro Bowler last year, and this might be a bold statement to make, but I think Webb actually reminds me a lot of Charles Woodson from the Green Bay Packers. He can play inside in the nickel if he needs to. He can play outside. He can also play safety if he's called upon, but that's never had to happen because the Ravens have always had good safeties. I mean, Jimmy Smith going into his second year. John Harbaugh said Jimmy Smith was the best cover corner he has ever scouted. And John Harbaugh surely knows a lot about secondary quarterbacks specifically, so I am really excited for Jimmy Smith. Kerry Williams came out of nowhere last season. I think Jimmy Smith is eventually going to overtake Kerry Williams on the depth chart. And obviously with Ed Reed, Bernard Pollard, two stud safeties, that secondary is going to lock down receivers. But with that said, I think the linebacking core, and specifically the outside linebackers, has to be the biggest weakness. I mean, when you take Terrell Suggs, arguably the best overall outside linebacker in the entire NFL, out of that defensive front, that really, really hurts you. And I hear everybody talking about how Pernell McVie, Paul Kruger, and all those guys had breakout seasons. But guess what? Part of that breakout season was because Terrell Suggs was on the field. He was commanding double teams. So what's going to happen when all those double teams are taken away, and these young guys who none of them have started one game, are going to have to start learning to fight off double teams. I mean, that doesn't sound good to me, and it's especially going to be apparent against the Steelers. If you watch Ron Jaworski's quarterback countdown, there's one stat that should scare you the most. When Ben Roethlisberger had 3 tight ends on the field, he was completing 75% of his passes. So with the evolution of the tight end position, not only are the receiving aspects of the tight end going to change, but the blocking schemes. So now you have Upshaw, Kruger, Kindle, Albert McClellan is a guy who I think is going to compete. All those guys haven't started one game, and you're going to put them against all these big tight ends and have them fight through double teams. That doesn't sound good to me. So I think, but that said, I think the secondary can sort of make up for that with all the great corners they have. And with the one position that I think needs to produce the most to return to the AFC Championship has to be the receiving corps. I mean, the Ravens have gotten a lot of attention for their older offensive line and a lot of other issues that they have. But for the last 2 seasons, the receiving corps has really let them down in the biggest situations. I mean, C.J. Houshmandzadeh, if he catches that ball, who knows what happens? I mean, we know what happens if Lee Evans catches that ball. They brought Jacoby Jones in. I think he's going to be a great addition. He's going to help bring a lot of speed to this Ravens offense, which is one thing Joe Flacco hasn't had in his 4 years. I mean, you got Torrey Smith, but he's just a second-year player. I'm sorry, the jury's still out on him for me. So what you can do is now you can put Jacoby Jones and Torrey Smith on the outside, 2 speedsters to really stretch that defense and open things up inside for Anquan Bolden, Ray Rice coming out of the backfield, Ed Dixon and Dennis Pitta in the inside. A lot of people talk about Dennis Pitta. I actually like him a lot better than Ed Dixon. I think he's the more reliable target, while Dennis Pitta is the more reliable option, while Ed Dixon is the more athletic guy who can't really seem to catch the ball. I mean, he's from Oregon, and don't get me wrong, I'll take any offensive player from Oregon any day. But he just didn't seem to cut it at times. He did that great catch against Cincinnati, but Dennis Pitta seems to be the more reliable tight end target. Joe Flacco is really developing a relationship with him, so I really like Dennis Pitta. And for the Ravens' overall record this season, I see them around 10 wins. They have a really tough schedule. They play a lot of really good Pro Bowl quarterbacks. So I see around 10-6, first place, and hopefully the Super Bowl. My name is Jeff Gilley. Thanks for listening to WNST. That's all the time I have. Thank you very much.
If you love Baltimore sports, you'll love WNST.net.